Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. And if you're listening now or you're listening later, I'm Kate Luzio, founder and CEO of Luminary and host of Goaldigger here on LinkedIn Live. It's kind of crazy, but we've been doing this, or I've been doing this since the pandemic started, thinking we will only be doing this for a few months, and now we're going on 2 years. But I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Shauna Fox, who is a program manager and Women on the Move at JP Morgan Chase. And full disclosure, JP Morgan Chase has been an amazing corporate member of Luminary since we opened our doors in 2019. And because of my history as an alum of JP Morgan Chase, I was actually part of the original group that thought about Women on the Move and what that was going to look like more internally. And it's great to see how it's evolved. So welcome, Shauna. We're going to talk about Women on the Move. But before we get there, we're going to talk about you. So good to have you on here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so very excited.
And so, again, for the audience, Shauna has been working with Luminary for the last couple of years since she joined Women on the Move team. And most of our conversations have been on Zoom, but we did get to meet her. That was that October? No,
October, yes.
October, when JP Morgan had your leadership day for Women on the Move, and you came to Luminary. So we have met in person, which is great, but always good to see you. So, and Shauna, you are zooming in from where?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, so we're going to back it up. Pre-JP Morgan, pre-Women on the Move. Can you, and we do this for everyone, because I think it's really important women tell their own version of the story. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and then how you got to JP Morgan Chase?
Yes. Again, thank you for having me. I'm so very excited to have this conversation with you. I grew up, born and raised in Chicago, very humble beginnings. Public school child here right in front of you, graduated from a local high school and went away my freshman year of college to Tuskegee University because I wanted to have the full campus experience. But I very quickly learned that was actually not for me. I came right back to the city and finished at DePaul University. And right when I came back, immediately started working and doing school. So I spent the majority of my college time as working up to 3 jobs and doing school. So that was a very colorful experience. Going from a freshman year that was very traditional, on campus, broke, hungry, like completely traditional, away from home in a very tiny town. Like there was not much in Tuskegee. Literally driving 40 minutes to Buffalo Wild Wings was like the thing. To coming back to Chicago and going to school in the city and having a completely different experience of being a commuter, working and managing it all. So eventually started my focus in college as a psychology major, actually. But then when I came back, I got a part-time job at a bank working as a teller, and very quickly just love the dynamic of having my first real job, feeling like a professional and just seeing amazing, powerful women. Even back then, I remember our regional manager was just amazing and just feeling like this is what I should do, not knowing exactly what it would look like or the exact role, but just knowing that professional business setting works for me. So I switched my major to so long ago, financial management, entrepreneurship, and just completely pivoted and very quickly, starting as a part-time teller, super quick to a teller supervisor, and then the assistant manager of the branch within a year of starting at this bank. So very quickly progressed, was dropped into a role where I was the underdog. I was very young. I was managing people that was my mother's age, and I was 20, 21. So very early management, very tough. This was back in the days when people like really hated banks, protesting banks, dumping trash in the banks. It was a very unique time. And I quickly started in that retail environment of banking and did really well and just was always an underdog, always exceeded, but quickly wanted to move beyond that. And I moved to a few different banks, all in the retail capacity. but was always applying to JP Morgan and just was not getting through. And then finally, one year, I had 3 interviews at JP Morgan for 3 different roles, 3 different lines of businesses. And I got offered 2 of the 3. And I took one that was the most strategic, having me manage the largest team and being in a completely different realm of operations. And was an underdog there. I joined and I was very successful and did very well. And since I've been at JP Morgan, about 8 years ago is when I joined, have strategically moved around. I've been in the corporate, in investment bank, commercial bank. Of course, I'm now in the DE and I space, and it's all been largely management operations, but again, very strategic moves on my end because I know my bigger goal. And now I'm here at Women on the Move, which was completely unexpected because just a few years ago, DE&I was not even really a thing. So like having so many roles available was something that I never saw. And I can recall describing a role very similar to the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, but not being able to see a job opening for it. And then all of a sudden in quarantine, about a week after, I was wondering to myself, like, now that we're not going into the office, how will you be visible? I've always been a huge networker. I've always been very personable and just regularly interacting with people and building relationships genuinely, not just for my career, but genuinely building with people. And I was wondering to myself, how will you manage this now? And then a job opening came for Women on the Move, and it was literally checking off so many boxes. And I was informed to share the opening to people, and I just applied for it. Do not share it.
You didn't.
And so here I am. And yeah, and about a year and a half later, been the program manager, to your point, of a like very quickly growing and evolving team that even in the time that I've been here, the growth, the changes have been fantastic to see. So it's been exciting for me. But I think the continuous theme of my personal career and life has been this underdog notion of my resume may not say the exact words that you're looking for in your job, but my transferable skills and my success have like proven themselves. So it's always been a thing to me, is my superpower of at first glance, you don't see the title that you're looking for, but that what has been my successful contribution is that I'm a fresh perspective. I think outside of the box, and I'm able to bring that new perspective to a team and just really drive change there. So it's been exciting.
It is exciting, and I feel like I know you and I've known you, but I didn't know half of that stuff. So I was like writing notes as you're talking, so I'm gonna go into a couple of things.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, and as you said, this is a theme around this underdog mentality. So I can imagine you go off to do this college campus, you go to Tuskegee, you make the decision it wasn't for you. But you've already built relationships there. Now you've got to go do it all over again. And as a commuter versus you're living on campus in that traditional setting, I can only imagine that sort of like, again, coming in as a sophomore and people have already built their networks and you really leaned into the underdog and started to build that. How did you have that mentality or mindset? Like that's how you're going to do, because you were young.
That's a great question. And as you were saying it, I was like reflecting back. And honestly, I just put my head down and thought about the bigger goal that I had for myself. So coming from very humble beginnings, coming from just always visioning bigger, and not even that I saw that in my life. I just knew I wanted a lot. I wanted bigger, and I just wanted all these things. And I knew the way to get that would be to get it for myself. So going from freshman year to where it was more social, it was more carefree. Honestly, it really wasn't authentic to me. Like not having control over what was in my bank account and not having control over being able to make decisions that would make things more comfortable for me because it was just so limited. I always honestly felt like maybe just probably older than what I was. So I think in most cases, the like a freshman would maybe think about one thing. I feel like I was always just thinking about this bigger picture for myself.
Yeah.
And so when I came back and making that transition of definitely seeing people with their communities of friends and their activities and things set, and I was really just so removed because I was like campus to work and just doing all these other things. I really just put my head down and thought about what I ultimately wanted for myself, and that was the way I transitioned.
So super, super goal oriented,
Very goal oriented.
always thinking about that next step
Yep.
and what it's going to take for you to get there. You, as you think about, and you talked a little bit about, as a part-time teller, and by the way, anyone that works in a branch, and as someone who worked in banking for 20 years, and then for anyone that is a really hard job.
Yep.
And the time when that you're talking about when everyone hated banks, I know that, right? Because I remember just being on the corporate and investment banking side, and every taxi I got into, everyone's like, "Oh, we hate you.
Yeah.
Where are you going?" "I'm going to JP Morgan." "Oh, we hate you. Why? Why? I didn't do anything." But you also very early on had to start managing people. And I was talking to someone about this yesterday. Especially when you're younger, number one, how did you handle that? Two, did the bank that you were working for at the time help you in learning how to be a manager?
They tried to help me. I'll start there. We did have the formalized training programs that weren't mandatory, which I found that in a lot of the places that I've worked at different points, that the transition to manager, the resources aren't always there as a mandatory option.
Yeah.
So I did have it like after a year into it, there were resources then presented that I could attend and have training. But as far as how I got through it, it was rough. I will not sugarcoat that at all. It was definitely rough. And I didn't have too many people to lean on because I worked at several branches in a leadership capacity, but the main branch that I spent the most time in was all women led, which was phenomenal. It was a completely women led branch. We were like in the top 3 consistently, and we were all under 30, which was even more impressive. So I didn't have many people to lean on directly there because we were all having the same growing pains.
Yeah.
It was just, trial by fire. Leaning within myself and being true to myself was a big thing that I realized was my guiding light, because I got lots of advice from people. And this was also probably a time of, I don't want to say iron fist leadership, but it was leadership that was not authentic to me. So really trying to find my voice in all of that. And it just did not feel comfortable, and it was not authentic, and it was thusly not effective. So very quickly, I relied on honestly that underdog feature that I lived throughout my life of, I've been in the trenches because I was a part-time teller. I did all of the roles in the bank before I became a manager. So I knew what it was like to be in that role. And that ultimately was the thing that set me apart from other managers, because I had done it. And several managers were maybe amazing salespeople, and then they were promoted to managers. Meanwhile, like, I balanced drawers, I had dealt with customers, I had a different level of experience. So after being terrified and being just very insecure about it, because again, I was very young.
Yeah.
And a woman in that space, a young Black woman. So there were lots of layers that I was nervous about. I ultimately just realized, hey, like, you need to be authentic and you need to just be transparent with people. And that's carried through for all of my careers, where I realized that is often the thing that most people underestimate and don't lean into. They aren't very transparent, and they don't genuinely put the people first.
Right.
And that was really that drove my success in a way that you would just probably not believe. I'm so grateful for it. But yeah, lots of tears, lots of weight loss, lots of stress. But the genuine energy within me is what I leaned into and was like, look, I don't know everything. Like, we're in this together. And I really leaned into that team dynamic.
And I think it probably, allowed you to really listen and learn because you had this driving factor. But at the same time, as you mentioned, set you apart from maybe other managers because you had been there, done that. So that credibility with those employees saying, listen, I get it. I've been you. Let's work together versus I'm just your manager and I've never experienced what you're going through. Right. I mean, that well-roundedness makes people not only better managers, better leaders.
Yep. Completely agree.
So you're doing this, you're graduating, and then you trying desperately to get into JP Morgan Chase. Why JP Morgan?
Because at that point, they will remain unnamed, but I've been to every other major bank.
Okay.
And I didn't feel that it was right.
Yeah.
And JP Morgan Chase is the bank. So that is where I wanted to be. And I've been to smaller banks and I've been to larger banks, and I had not been here. And it just really felt like every opportunity that I saw was here, and it was the most growth, and it was just really more options. So that is where I wanted to be. And I worked downtown Chicago. So likely seeing the Chase Tower it was also a big piece of it. And I wanted to be there. I really can't even explain it deeper than that. I just felt like I really want to be there. I'm seeing these great opportunities, all of these amazing openings, and I can just imagine the competition and all the applicants that they get, especially now being on the inside. I know it's just so much interest. Yeah, and nothing happened until I can't recall how many years it took, but finally, like all of a sudden, I was on their radar, and I was like, how did this happen? 3 interviews like in the span of a month, all reaching out.
How did you not? I mean, because listen, it's like any job. You keep trying, and you knew you were qualified. You knew you were, you could add a lot of value. How did you just not say, you know what, I'm gonna give up? And I know the underdog component, right? But where does that come from? Is that something that came from as you grew up? This I'm not giving up.
Not at all. Like I don't know where I came from because it really wasn't a theme that was like heavily instilled in me. I think it was just something naturally within me of I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there, but I just picture all of these amazing things for myself. And that notion of just really, I don't want to say working aimlessly, but you're just moving forward. Like that was ultimately what I was doing. So the thought of not applying anymore literally never crossed my mind. It was just, I'm going to get there. I'm just going to keep going for it and it'll come through. It was like I feel like it was, oh my God, those days of like really manually applying to jobs.
Yeah.
So, like it was just not even a thought to not apply here. So.
Which is amazing because then you get there. You've done a bunch of different things and ultimately land with Women on the Move, which is how we came to know you at Luminary. Yes. Can you talk, because again, I know what it is. We love working with Women on the Move. It's under the incredible leadership of Sam Saperstein, and just a great group of individuals at JP Morgan Chase. But can you talk a little bit about Women on the Move? And later on in the show, I'll put up where people can find more. But can you talk about not only Women on the Move, but your role, because you're doing a bunch of different things. I mean, you're super, super busy, like everyone, but you are managing a lot because there's a lot on your plate.
Yes. Women on the Move is amazing. It is a line of business, like it's a full-time job. I always want to paint that picture because I know it's easy to think about business resource groups, but
right.
Women on the Move is a line of business that is completely dedicated to empowering women, not just within our firm, but also beyond. So we focus in 4 different areas, and those areas really align to where we're targeting women. So business growth and entrepreneurship is really targeted towards helping women in the community with ownership of their businesses, and just leadership in that business capacity. Financial health and wellness is not just empowering women with their finances, but really educating the youth. So focusing on younger women, young girls, college age, and giving them that education and resources to help them then build towards wealth and growth in that area. But again, also focusing on our women clients, women in the community, to give them resources and education around that piece. And then careers and skills is largely internal focus for the women within JP Morgan to have growth opportunities and to really have those pieces to advance in their career and to have the specialized support that women would need in the workplace that may be more unique from our male counterparts. And then the fourth area is community development, which we have largely been targeting that with the financial health and wealth area.
Mm.
And that is taking pieces to the community to really educate, empower women. We're still really working in that area, but of course, our partnership with Luminary has actually been our first stop to really focus in that community space. And my role is a lot as program manager, really being the person that connects to each of those areas because we have leads that drive those areas. As a program manager, I'm the central piece that pushes all the behind the scenes to make sure we get to execute everything. So everything from looking at who we partner with as far as external organizations to internally making sure that we're truly being thoughtful and intersectional with our peers within the bank to make sure that all women are represented and to make sure that we're really being thoughtful about how we approach all of our metrics that we're trying to move forward. So it's a very robust job. To your point, it's a team that is tiny but mighty, and it's still so new. So it's just been a lot that we've been diving into.
Yeah, when you look at what Women on the Move has become, and I, again, now having working with so many different organizations and companies as with Luminary, just seeing how the evolution from a BRG or an ERG to now a line of business is unbelievable, right? And also in a very short amount of time, considering how much you guys have done. I think the other thing that, as a partner, we're really proud of is just the focus on women in the community and small business owners. And for those of you that don't know, we announced a few weeks ago an expanded partnership with JP Morgan Chase for Luminary and small business owners, women-owned businesses, in particular, women of color-owned businesses, where a fellowship program. Then, by the way, the applications are still open until next week. So if you are a woman-owned business or a woman of color-owned business, apply. Why LaShawna, or Shauna, sorry, it's we know each other, so it's Shauna. Trying to be professional. So why is that small business? Again, we got it. You're a bank, but why on that small business, women-owned business, women of color-owned business, so important to you and Women on the Move?
I mean, we see it all over the media. Like small businesses just make up a huge part of the work that we're in. And then when you take it to the even more specific level of Black women-owned businesses, women of the growth of entrepreneurship for this community has been amazing. And as much growth as we see, the support is not always balanced. So it was just really important for us to make sure that we offer resources and we offer education to help support the groups that really need it. Again, when you just look at, and you'll see it all the time on the news, or if you look at really targeted things for the small business space, it just doesn't match the resources that women business owners actually walk away with or the rate at which they're starting businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about the numbers, and the numbers even now, I think the number that I saw recently is for women-owned businesses, it's 27% increase of what it was even in 2019. A lot of that comes to the She Session and necessity entrepreneurs, people leaving the Great Resignation. And so how do we continue to support? And then obviously the 60% of all new women-owned businesses are women of color. Right. And that a big portion of that are the Black community. So we're in Black History Month, which is, the shortest, coldest month of the year for most places. But what we always say is, these heritage months are great, but we've got to continue to have, representation and voices all throughout the year. As a Black woman working in a bank, right? You're still an underdog.
Yeah.
Right. It's changing. But how would you talk to younger or even your peers that aren't necessarily where you're at, that are from the Black community, around, maybe tips or advice around keep going, or how to build relationships, or just in general advice for them too, that you can make it?
I literally have that conversation, Kate, every day with a couple of women in my community that we lean on. So I would say to really trust yourself.
Mm,
And although it is difficult to be authentic, to still push forward with authenticity, because that is ultimately what will catapult you forward. When most people, not even just as a Black woman, but people that I've talked to that weren't being authentic with themselves in the workspace,
hmm
then say once they were, that was when everything changed. And that was when the opportunities and the success really came through. And I completely agree with that, because I know that when I was trying to fit into a different mold and
Yeah.
to talk like everyone else or dress like everyone else, it never felt right. Um, but the moment I realized that what I brought to the table was unique and I didn't have to convert my voice or convert my tone or anything else about me, and I could still move forward, that was when I felt like I really hit my stride. And again, it's always easier said than done. But a part of the reason why I feel like I need to be in corporate America now is so that my peers or women that are coming up behind me can see that I'm able to be authentic, and how I am now is how I am everywhere, and I'm able to still move forward. So it's really important, I think, to, like we always say, representation matters. And I mean, there's really no better way to put it. Like, it's really important that I feel like I be here in some capacity, because I know, like, the conversations that Black women have, like, I feel like it's just so unfortunate we have to have those conversations,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And I think it's just really important that we own it, we feel empowered, and we feel unapologetic. And we know that it may be uncomfortable, but to be authentic and to be consistent and committed to that, if you break through and you're going to be a rock star.
I love that. And you mentioned, as you started that question, these are conversations that you have every day with sort of a group.
Yep.
How important is that to make sure you've got a community that you can, that even to talk to about these issues, and how do we change that? So what's that like for you?
It is super important. I'm grateful. I have an amazing network, not just with Black women, but amazing women that I love. Um, it's important. And I think that we need to, I know there's often fear and shyness around approaching it, but once you rip that band-aid off, it is something that I feel like I would be half of where I am now if I didn't have that network. And yeah, it's critical. And I think just having spaces, honestly, like Luminary, I always praise like the Luminary space, because it's, from a physical standpoint, it really promotes that in such an organic, beautiful way. And I think that now that we're still kind of spaced out working from Zoom, it may
Mhm.
be difficult to initiate that. But I mean, I can't advocate for it enough. Like, we need to just make it the norm, make it like be that conversation starter, because that can make a difference. I can assure you, like, everyone in the circle is thinking the same thing and wanting to ask the same question, but that one person that may kickstart the conversation just changes it.
Amazing. Last question. This always goes by so fast.
I know.
Um, and I still consider myself a banker, even though I've retired from banking for the time being. Never say never. When you think about personal finance, right? And as someone who works for a bank, how important is that to you?
Insanely important, especially coming from, a lot of communities don't have the education. And
Yeah.
I definitely did not have education growing up at all, but have always had that interest. So it's very important for women, is very important in today's economy, and all that's happening is very important. It's so important for everybody. And I would say that now we're fortunate to be in an age of accessible resources,
Yeah.
just so easy. So whatever the delivery, it is important to tap into it and find the way that works for you, and really lean into that, because it makes a world of a difference. And the education part of it, no matter what dollar amount you may be striving towards, just having the education is important.
And having the conversation back to the struggles that we have, that you have as a woman of color, someone's got to speak up, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the stigmas have to go away. That's a big part.
Exactly. And we don't do that unless we start talking out loud, right? Rather than keeping to themselves. Well, Shauna, first of all, I'm so excited that you got to join. Second, we are, for those of you that are watching or watching later, we will actually be on the road this year with JP Morgan Chase. Luminary will be in a couple of different cities in JP Morgan Chase Community Center. So more to come on that. We're so excited, and we'll be coming to Chicago. So we can see you. But for anyone that wants to find you, is LinkedIn the best place?
LinkedIn is definitely the best place. Yes.
Okay. So I put up there Women on the Move. You can find more out jpmorganchase.com/impact/people/women-on-the-move. But if you Google Women on the Move, it is literally the first thing that comes up. And to find Shauna, please follow her on LinkedIn. Shauna, I'll see you next week in our weekly call. But thank you so much for joining. And thank you everyone for listening and watching later, downloading. This has been Goaldigger here on LinkedIn Live. I'm Kate Luzio, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.